All right, the world may not need another podcast, but it can definitely use a
huge slap in its face.
That's right. Welcome to Slap the Power, the show where we bring together artists who use their powers for progress. I'm your host, Rick Barrio Dill.
And I am Maya Sykes.
That's right. On the show today, Hollywood's job picture, Maya. It's looking really bleak.
Well, have you seen Hollywood's pictures? They are terrible.
That's right. Also, the U.S. is suing Adobe for making it too hard to cancel a subscription.
They should, because it is too hard to cancel a subscription.
That's right. And backed by popular demand, we're going to do Two Truths and a Slap a little later, a new segment where we go over three ridiculous realities together that neither Maya nor myself have ever heard, and we try to determine which one is actually a slap. A little later, we're going to slap the topic with AI again, but first, in the studio today,
we have the amazing, handsome,
yes,
and fabulous, the one and only Mr. Johnny Cruz. Hey. And you may know him as the voice of something that we don't want to give away, so I'm not going to tell you the surprise because it's really dope.
Yeah, but he is in studio today as a co-host, and we appreciate you sitting on the table, man.
Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, brother. So the first topic we're kind of want to hint at today is just the job scene in Hollywood. I know we bring you back for the interview later, and we talk about that a little bit later. But what's your feeling on the ground on the job scene post two strikes?
Yeah, post two strikes. Well, I think just as an actor, man, it's always the utmost uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So
to begin with.
Yeah. So this for me, pretty normal.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm not panicking. It's usually all fuckery. Okay,
well, because I think for me, there are some like gigs that people rely on so deeply and heavily, but I think for over the years, I've just created so many different ways in which to take care of myself, whether it be, if I'm not doing some high-end video game or something, I'm doing some little tech motion capture job, right?
Yeah.
Or something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Well, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. I think that the people who have always found ways to adapt and always found ways to hustle, this was nothing new. I think where it hit a lot of people were who had those regular threads.
This
like I know a lot of friends that I know in acting are having a hard time because they knew that they could get 6 to 7 commercials a year.
Yeah.
That would be, about 6 figures that could, make, and now they don't have that. And dramatically they don't have that. So they're in this place where they're having to all of a sudden hustle in a way that they don't know how to do. But I think the people who never gave up their hustle are the ones who are surviving, to be honest.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think back there, somebody told me a story once ago, a long time ago, about how when the piano roll came out, right? It was like it's doing away with all piano players and stuff like, and it kind of it really didn't. It was the evolution of things. I think when you said one of the things that we did, because the bottom got dropped out in the music live touring industry, when you rely on that for 100% of your income or something, and the pandemic came around, the bottom dropped out, and it forced all of us to kind of rethink about, okay, well, that's one thing, but then also, what can we do to hedge against that? What can we do to protect ourselves? What can we do to sort of see what the future might look like, where there's new things, that are coming along, and that's what we hope to kind of create with this show here is keep the subject of conversation, abound for the people that are actually all up in it. But I do think for me, I every time I get in these conversations, I'm always like, well, what we're doing, we're doing something about it. We're making our own productions.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
and it's the people who never allowed themselves to get too comfortable.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And the industry is evolving into crazier and crazier ways, like through TikTok, to YouTube, so this old Hollywood, thing that I still am like, oh, the old sitcom or the film, TV, movie person, like it is not quite that anymore. It's a disparaging gap nowadays with the huge movies, and then just kind of the other ones, and then social media and stuff like that. So
but there's so many movies now. I mean, Tubi has movies.
Yeah.
What the hell is Tubi?
What is
But I actually, because again, we've talked about this a lot. This happened to musicians 20 years ago with Napster and stuff like that. Where it started to come from the bottom up rather than the top down. Where it was like, gee, it used to be, God, I hope Warner Brothers loves my demo. I hope the check clears.
Right.
I hope we get to do this. I hope we get to do that. And when you put GarageBand on everybody's laptops and Napster came out, it was like, okay, I can put out a record for nothing. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, can I make good stuff? And I feel like from the bottom up, that gives it. There's a lot more competition. Obviously, there's a lot more, but it actually, to me, it feels like there's going to be a chance for more of a meritocracy. Hopefully.
Yeah. I see that,
by good quality stuff. But then, if it's just Marvel movies and Tubi.
Child.
If that's it, Marvel movies and Tubi. So I would ask you something too, because this is something we wanted to hit on today, and we were going over our producers this morning. So this happened too with. Do you have subscription services? You're a guy that puts together all your own content.
Pretty much all
of them, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
How can you not in today's?
You have to have them, right? Have you ever looked at the total on what that is per month?
Actually, I recently just started doing this because I've been doing this podcast budget thing called. There's this lady. Her name is Tori Dunlap, and she has a thing called the Financial Feminist.
Okay,
and I really like her platform because she says, especially for people that aren't white, financial literacy is the equivalent to a freedom that you need to have because it's your way of saying, it's your way of being against the patriarchy, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
But one of the things that she says is you can pay an app to go through all of your apps and say, here's where you have double subscriptions, but then you're paying another thing to do something for you.
They don't look at themselves.
So she said to look at your payment source for 1 month and see where all your subscriptions lie, and then go to your app store and see where all your subscriptions are going to renew. So then you'll see, because some don't do it monthly, some do it annually, or they do it a couple times a year. But she said to write all of those down and see where you can ditch half of them. But it's an interesting exercise because when I did that, I didn't realize how many I had on a sneaky level. And so this is why this Adobe suit is fascinating to me, because Adobe's one of the ones that I just got. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. So I had Adobe Fill and Sign because I liked it a little bit better than DocuSign.
Okay, right.
Okay.
But in this day and age, if you sign any kind of paperwork, you're asked to do it now digitally on one of these platforms. So Adobe is phasing out their Fill and Sign. And they're making it so that you have to have the actual Adobe app now to fill out any documentation. But that app costs 4 times as much. So I got a thing saying by July, blah, 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 your new subscription to Adobe is going to renew at $33.95 or what? At $29.95. Meanwhile, for Adobe Fill and Sign, I paid a one-time fee of $6. But now, since they're phasing this out, now I'm going to be charged a monthly fee to use anything Adobe like. And I'm like, that's a huge bait and switch. And that's what's happening with a lot of these companies. Same with Apple services, because they did a bait and switch. So now if you want to get Apple News at premium, that's now $30 a month. I don't know that if you know that you're paying that.
No, I don't. I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't watch this. It's too but
no.
I've
just like when it comes on your phone, where it's like, here are the top stories.
Yeah,
that's a news service, and you are paying for it.
Well, there's a free version.
No way.
But because I have it, because then every time I click, it says you don't belong to this newspaper or stuff like that.
Okay, but interesting.
Yeah, but I know there's the automatic thing. Like for example, with Adobe, they just kept raising prices.
Right.
And then it happened with waves where they would have us buy software, and every year you had to buy the annual subscription so you could stay current. And then when it finally, they were like, okay, so now you own this software, but now we're going to a monthly service.
This is
and so now we're going to
get software's obsolete.
I think they're probably getting me back for all the times I downloaded their software before.
That's fair.
Because I do pay the full price on like all of it. The bundle suite at the beginning, so I don't even know what's going on those levels of like individual.
But that's what I'm saying. A lot of us bought the bundle suites of some of these things thinking that it was a one-time fee.
It was all,
and that we owned it, if not the software itself, that we owned that version for as long as we wanted to use it. And now they're making these little tricky dicky moments.
It's tricky dicky.
It is, because they're doing these things being like, we're phasing this out now, so you'll no longer be able to use it. So if you want to be able to use it, you now have to go, because they did that with Pro Tools, remember?
Totally.
And that was a huge bait and switch with Pro Tools. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And you kind of had to fall in line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
you had no choice.
You really had no choice.
Yeah.
And so it's these companies that have you over, that have you over a barrel, and you have no other option. Yeah. That's the part where I'm like, is that considered a monopoly? What is that? Because I'm noticing it, and it's happening everywhere. Everybody is getting these little
Amazon's
trickerations.
New
and
like,
I don't like
ads.
this hateration in this hateration.
Yeah, Amazon like ads now. Like watching the thing, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, no, totally.
How do I get rid of this?
And
it was immediate.
So this is cable.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, so this is rude.
This is cable.
I had this so that I didn't have commercials, and y'all told me that if I got the thing, then I wouldn't have the commercials. Yet that looks like a commercial.
What am I paying for?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting place where we find ourselves, because it actually leads back to the Hollywood and the jobs market, I think, in some ways, is because, and shout out, like, leave your worst sort of subscription story. Feel free to leave it in the comments and stuff like that. But the streaming model is flawed. That's what the strikes were about.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. And so in that, I think the software companies it's kind of like the same thing, where it feels like it's going to, the only way you can do, they're trying to do the same thing where it feels like that the studios made the mistake with, which is if you get people on a subscription service, that's it, right?
Yeah.
And it only your market can only go so big.
That's
where the studios realize, oh, wow, okay, so we've already got all the Netflix subscribers we're ever pretty much going to get in the United States.
And the Netflix, is it me? But every Netflix movie seems the exact same lately. Like, they all have the same protagonist and antagonist. They all have the same result. They all have the same slightly digestible storyline that isn't too complicated and doesn't require
What's the
too
worst
much
one
thought.
you've seen lately?
Damsel.
Oh yeah, I did watch that. I was like,
was it Madam?
This didn't satisfy my fantasy itch.
Yeah. Madam Web.
Was that a Netflix? I thought that was a
Sony.
movie.
That was Sony.
But man, I was just like, what in the hot dribble is this?
Yeah.
And I was trying, like, I wanted, because it was women, and I wanted to like it. You know what I'm saying? Because I want there to be more like female driven.
Yeah. Sure.
Things of the Marvel, whatever.
Yeah.
But Lord. Oh, my Lord.
My Lord.
Damsel, same. I was like, okay, girl,
Get
now
it.
you with the dragon?
No.
What's cracking? Like, so now you and the dragons is besties. I was like, girl, I am confusion. What is happening? The whole thing.
Yeah.
It didn't. Yeah. It
But
didn't.
before we go to the break, how now we don't want to get too serious too fast, but how are you feeling about sort of the state of things with regards to? It seems like there's a lot of we're in the internet age. We're being played against each other in a way that feels tremendously disingenuous, and yet we're letting we're letting a convicted felon kind of stoke those things back up in us.
Living in Trump.
Yeah. I'm actually positive about the future that's coming up, but I also think that we can't be silent through this period and expect it to work itself out. Do you feel anything with regards to like the climate, the social climate kind of picking up around you?
Yeah, I mean, there is always this, right? There is always this on different levels throughout all generations in our entire lives, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is what I take from is when you preach separation in any way, right? It is an untruth, right? And so that's how I decide who I'm looking at as somebody I want to lead, or does this person divide or do they bring together? Baseline, right?
Yeah.
And how do they go about doing that? Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's never perfect, but I do think there's better people to be looking up to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like people who have a leadership that, yes, you could call out, the wrongs, but how could you bring together the different sides through a bridge, right? And not burn all these bridges, right?
Yeah.
They're like each, Biden and Trump have a responsibility to build a bridge. And I don't think either of them are.
Trump's not worried about that.
Yeah. No.
Well, Biden's trying to do as much good as he can before he gets off this earth because his next stop is heaven.
Yeah, it's real close. It's real close.
Right?
In the upper room.
Yeah. So,
and and it's
the Inflation Reduction Act, we're reducing college loans.
Right.
I mean, we could go on, but I understand it's as far as he's probably not the
It's still the
idea.
old white male trope.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's still the interesting fact that we had other candidates. People still boiled this down to two old white men.
It was
So what
wild.
it so
It's
it just
wild.
says
It's
something
wild.
about our country that we were like, here are all these progressive other candidates who aren't one step to the upper room. And we were like, nah,
I think
let's
it's
keep these old white dudes.
I think it's different than because it is an electoral. It's all about the electoral college,
Of course.
So that battle that's going on is, can this old white crusty guy? He's the only guy that's beat Trump before. So
bring in our champion.
hey, this guy has done it before, so they're going to bring him back. And hopefully, even if it's, I like what Bill Maher says, even if it's head in a bottle of blue liquid, I'm voting for him because
Listen,
because,
Futurama style it. I don't
of course.
care.
because I don't know if you saw the other day where they slipped in. This is Trump's house. Mike Johnson is his puppet, and they slipped in an 18. Well, they've had it for a while, but the automatic registration for the draft in the House
and I was
bill,
like, when I read
18 to
that, I was
26.
like, wait, what in the 1972 are we?
Exactly.
Like, what is happening?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Watch the signs. Don't watch what they say. Watch what they do.
Watch what they do. Absolutely.
And so that's why we always
the Roots told me to never do what they do.
Well, if you ever get confused, there is a wonderful site that's out there for no matter where you're at, because it's not all just about the presidents. It's all the local races. It's all the school board races and things like that. And so you can always go to votesaveamerica.com. You can put in your state.
It's really helpful.
Any way you want to help. It's super easy. It's free. So make sure to check that out. And
it gives you a nonpartisan look at every race, every candidate. It gives you a breakdown that's easy to digest. You can go over it with your communities if people in your communities are unsure about what, and I've been seeing, that's a thing that goes back to the 60s. One of the things that black churches did was just this, like with people who didn't necessarily have the same literacy, people got together and they were like, here's what this says and here's what this means.
That's what's needed.
And that's what we need to do.
Education of the it's because it's such a dense and weird world, and when you get your packets to vote, you're like, I don't know this person. Who is this?
Also, you're like, who is Appellate Court 1127?
What do they do? And
Right.
you're like, I don't want to sit here and
No.
Can somebody just explain this to me real quick?
Sure.
But that is like the education of like how, and I think there is none. You know, like for especially middle America, like a part of the world, like there's nobody's.
That's
looking
why
at
we have
that.
this show, dog.
Yeah,
It's because there 9 out of the top 10 political podcasts are right-wing, extreme propaganda machines, right?
Right.
It's white male grievance, all over the place. It's
spouting a lot of things that are just categorically untrue.
Exactly.
That's my problem with
Right.
it. Like, you can have whatever opinion you want, but if you're spouting your opinion as a truth, there is where we draw the line.
Yeah.
Or
For
we
sure.
should be drawing the line.
Yeah.
And we're not drawing the line.
That's right.
And her eye is scared.
Well, we're going to be working on it all in between now and November, and we like it so much here that we're going to keep Mr. Johnny Cruz around till after the break. So coming up after the break, our interview with Johnny.
Hey.
Gambling is part of the culture of America, since even before we were America. I'm Norman Chad. I know gambling. I've played blackjack and poker. I've bet sports and horse races. I've even hit the slot machines at a Pahrump, Nevada 7-Eleven. You say gambling, I say gambling mad. So join me on Gambling Mad with Norman Chad, wherever you find your podcasts. Follow us on socials at Gambling Mad Show or at Gambling Mad Norman Chad at YouTube.
All right. Joining us for the interview today in studio, He's an actor. He's a screenwriter, producer, filmmaker, musician.
Oh.
We're going to talk about this a little bit later. Dear friend of ours, voiceover star, and ladies, Mr. Hot Man himself, Johnny Cruz.
Hey.
Are you single?
I am not.
See?
I said hot man. I didn't say single.
But no, you said ladies. See, don't be
Ladies.
getting a man in trouble. That's rude.
I'm just saying that he's fun to look at. I'm not even gay, but
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
I'll
but
take
maybe
that.
his lady is doing it like Idris Elba's lady, like the sister wife situation. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's not like that at all. No.
She looks. Oh, she probably could throw down. She can fight. So
Yeah, exactly. She kicked somebody's ass.
let's not get him in trouble on the way home.
No. But thank you for coming in, brother.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. For those that don't know, which is just for the few people that do not know who Johnny Cruz is, tell everybody above and beyond what you got working on right now.
So, I've been an actor for the majority of my life, since about the 7th grade.
Aw.
Yeah.
What did you act in in the 7th grade?
In the 7th grade?
remember your
actually,
first?
let me tell you my very first experience.
Yeah.
4th grade was the first time I ever did any performance, and it was Sleepy Hollow.
Oh,
and I auditioned
okay.
for the
All right.
role of Brom Bones.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is mine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, because Lawrence got it.
Yeah.
And I got Mr. Van Tassel. And I
Damn it.
remember being so upset, and I've been chasing my Brom Bones role ever since.
Ever
Ever
since?
since you've been
Ever
trying to be
since.
Ron Bones. Yeah, I get
The
it.
villain boy. But you know what? I gave the most incredible Mr. Van Tassel you would have ever seen.
I-
You
With
know
that
what?
one line.
I bet it was stirring and rabble rousing at the same time.
But there was something about it. I was like, I love this. And so I kept doing it in classes. And I had teachers that were always very encouraging out of all of sports and all the things that were like, you got to get out of here, kid.
Yeah.
Theater was like, hey, that was awesome. And so I found, that level of love and appreciation kept me coming back and just enjoying it. So
That's cool. You knew kind of early when you have something like that. That's pure joy coming
Yeah.
from the center, right?
And I was already a cheese goofball, and that was just the place to be doing it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. It was good.
And what got you to L.A.? What brought you here? Because it was El Paso, right? And,
yeah, El Paso.
Oh, you're a Texan. Okay, cool.
Yeah, Texas.
How do you associate with Texas now as a Californian?
I think there is this ease or a kind of a making sure people are taken care of in some regard, or hospitality. I like to make sure people are having a good time.
Yeah.
There's this level of like friendliness, I think, a level of like, how y'all doing? I still, I'm still using that.
How y'all doing?
How y'all doing? Yeah,
How y'all doing?
Yeah,
I use that. That's great.
I appreciate you. I say that
I
a lot.
like y'all because it's non-binary, but it doesn't piss off Republicans. Like if you say how y'all doing, they're not like, oh, you did this to be gender inclusive.
It's and I do that on emails.
Right.
Hey, y'all.
Samesies.
Yeah. How y'all doing?
Yeah.
I use y'all in emails too. Yeah. It's a good one. Now, so what got you out here? Is it strictly acting the acting bug, or?
Yeah, I think it. In high school, I remember being like, well, I want to do acting, and I had gotten like I'd wanted to do acting. I was just like, I am not ready for LA, just emotionally as a person at that time. The foresight to understand that.
Are we there? Or are we still?
No, I'm still. How did I get here?
I was gonna say,
I am.
I'm not there.
I'm born here, so I guess you just have to have it in your
had
bloodline.
Yeah, it's in your bloodline. It's coursing through you right now, and I can see that.
I mean, I don't know. I get it though. Like this is a weird place to acclimate to because it's like a dozen little cities trying to be a city in one large area, so it's kind of hard to make sense out of.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because then, there was Dallas, which is like the Metroplex, which is a dozen little, or less little
and
cities.
Fort Worth.
Yeah, Fort Worth, that whole part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll go to, I remember being like, I had a couple offers from a couple colleges for like, partial theater scholarships and things like that. And I remember this is a weird moment in my life where I was overwhelmed. I didn't know anything. I felt like growing up, I was just, shot out and like, you figure it out, kid. And my mom was working all the time. My dad wasn't everywhere. So I was like, I don't know. So I remember looking at these packages. I had like a ton of packages and I was looking through them. And I remember being like, how do you make this choice?
Yeah.
Huh.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
and I didn't know like the process. There's like a really big like process of doing SATs and all. I learned later on in life of like, getting a certain way. I didn't know that at the time. But I remember I was sitting there and I'm just big on synchronicity. I get a call at that moment, the moment I sat down to look at all my packages from Angela Inman from University of Texas at Arlington. And she was like, "Hey, Johnny, I was just wondering if you wanted to accept our scholarship and come to our school." And she's like, "You can come check it out." And I was like, "Okay." But the thought was Dallas was in my sights because it had a film industry, right? It had a small commercial and direct-to-DVD movies. Some series were going on down there. So it was like, I thought if I got my feet wet over there, maybe I could like build up to hitting LA. So I went down and checked out the school. I was like, sure.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and I was there. And during that time, that is when I got an agent down there. I got my first commercial. I started doing direct-to-DVD action movies, like with like Kevin Sorbo. That's what was filming down there, but it was a big market, right?
Yeah,
and I was doing like stunts and all kinds of stuff because they were like, "You're young, get to it, get blown up, squared up." Yeah. And it was fun. It was a great like learning experience. I started making my own movies down there. So over a period of time, I did improv, and I was just like working on myself as a human. And at some point, I remember I was doing improv for this really, I felt prestigious group of guys down in Fort Worth, the 4-Day Weekend Theater, which incredible improv.
They're a big one.
Yeah. And so I was doing shows with them, and at some point I was like, wow, this is great. And then I remember this kind of moment where, I felt like I had done a lot of the things and I wanted to stay. I was like, this is great. But there was this like, one of the guys in the troupe, Oliver, was like, why aren't you in LA, man? And I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, we
So
got
comfy.
a good thing. This is great, man.
Yeah, it's comfy
like,
right here.
He was like, no, you need to do that. And I was like, oh.
Go beyond comfortable.
Yeah, go beyond
But isn't
comfortable.
it interesting that somebody else had to tell you
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And that they weren't also going, I should too go to LA, that they saw something in you that they didn't themselves have.
It was funny. Another synchronicity. I remember being like in Germany with my family, and I had my phone, and I was like sitting in the back of the station wagon we had rented to like go around, Germany. And I just remember being like, once again, I was like, oh man, should I go to LA? Like, is this like some friends had moved there and stuff? And I was like, is this the time? I was like, no, I'm too scared. At that exact moment, I get a call. It's like, I don't know, nighttime in Germany. It's my friend, Donnie Bose. He was moving to LA, and he was like, yo, Johnny, I'm moving to LA. Do you want to come with me? At that moment where I'm thinking about LA.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I'm like, nah, man. But it was just like, that was the final confirmation. I was like, okay, these weird little things that are happening, keep happening, so follow them, right? And so I said no to him, but then I was like, maybe like 3 or 4 months later, I had set up to move in with a friend and like hang out there for like a little bit and see what I was going to do. And then I ended up moving in with my friend Donnie and Kim, and it was just like, just these little things.
Do you consider this home now?
I do, yeah. I've been here for since 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That puts you.
Yeah.
That puts you in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, at this juncture, you do both live action and voiceover work.
Yeah.
What do you do to prepare for one versus the other?
It's interesting because I wasn't like a voiceover guy, right?
Okay.
I didn't see myself as I'm going to do voiceover, really. I was like, I'm a non-camera guy, hey.
For some that don't know, though, I buried the lead. I mean, he's Lucio in Overwatch, so most people know you from that. And so,
exactly.
But you weren't ever planning to get into voiceover.
No. But I got out here and I had a reel from Texas, and I was able to show that to people, and like, oh, great! Like this is some good work here.
Yeah.
And the manager I was with at the time sent me to a voiceover agency, and they're like, "Do you want to do that?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I go in, I'm in the meeting, we're talking. It's a good conversation. They have me read in the booth, like, at that moment. I was like, "Oh, we're doing this right now." Okay.
Right.
And so I read, but I was just taking it very like nonchalant because it was just like, I don't think I have a voice for whatever I was thinking voiceover was, right?
Yeah.
And then, like a week later, I didn't hear anything, so I literally wrote an email. I was like, "Yo, we doing this or what?"
To Overwatch?
Yeah, no, to the agency.
Oh, to the agency.
And
Okay,
they sent me paperwork. They're like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it wasn't until later that I was like, "Oh, this is difficult to get into or like, be a part of." And it was with a higher tier agency. But maybe my ignorance, my affableness, whatever I was, they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then that's when I started to jump in and be like, it was this wonderful haven. I didn't have to memorize my lines, and I could just go straight from the emotion to the paper and whatever that was, and using just only my voice in any way, shape, or form. I could use my face or my body to do the work. Because on-camera acting is a lot more still, is a lot like real close. This was like an exorcism of emotion. That was exciting and fun, and to find the truth in, because they're different. Find the truth in. Just being behind a camera and using whatever you could, or behind the mic, whatever you could to bring forth the sounds and the things, and it was fun and almost. And since I didn't have to memorize my lines, which was always the biggest just struggle for me with my ADHD, it was just great. It was just straight from me to the microphone. So.
Yeah. And then live action, you're kind of, because you're doing, like last time, we had a funny encounter, Maya, this is hysterical. So I was riding the bus. I got in a car accident. I was riding the bus in LA, which is a blast. I like doing them every once. And I had to walk. I had to make a connecting bus, and I'm walking over, and I get on the connecting bus, and as soon as I get on, Johnny's sitting there. He's like, Rick!
Yeah, it was just a moment. I also don't take public transit very often, but I
talk about serendipity.
Yeah,
I think that's why we talked about finally trying to line up our schedules and get in the studio. But you were coming from doing a mocap gig, right?
Yeah. And I was down in Santa Monica. I decided to take the train because at that time it was just like faster.
Yeah, because driving from here to Santa Monica is wrong.
At that right time, so I was like,
it's wrong. It's just totally
it's from
broken.
Satan. Don't do it. It's wrong.
It was and so then I was like, let's take a public transit day, and then that's the day that you pop on it. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that is life in some regard. Like never expecting to see certain people and certain things, and this happens to me just week after week, and it's just like, what is calling here? What is this moment? Pay attention here, right? It's not just by chance. There's something here to explore. So let me explore that. And so after we talked,
that's what's beautiful about the city too, right?
But you also strike me as a person who is just kind of guided by a specific force, and you just kind of follow that, because all the stories that you told, you were just kind of like synchronicity happened, and this just so coincidentally happened. So it's interesting that some people are very tenacious about these kinds of things and are like, I have to focus on this and this, but it seems like you have a very different approach, but it's wildly successful for you. So why do you think that approach has been the way for you, rather than being the person who's constantly on the hunt for the thing?
I think there's this level of power versus force, right? A mentor of mine, David Hawkins, talks about this level of forcing is like an aggressive, this is how it must be, kind of like almost oppressive feel. Like this is the force. Power is a level of allowing, I think, allowing what is to be without such resistance, right? And I think I've resisted a lot of my life, and I found that to be the most tumultuous times, right? It was where I'm trying to force a thing, trying to make things happen with my own small will of, But there are things that when we kind of back up and allow things to happen, allow feelings to happen, allow stuff to happen, where you're seeing the world in a way that's not so. I guess growing up I was very angry. I was like, I didn't have the things. I gotta get the things. I gotta get the love. People gotta see me on camera and love me. I'll show everybody, right?
Right.
But that drove me to a certain place. It drove me to be more talented, to achieve. But the achievements were never the thing I was looking for, right? So the achievements of like the next role, the next thing. Now people are seeing me. Great. The more I climbed, I was like, this is not the satisfactory fulfillment I've been garnering or wanting, right? Because then I'm still this person. I'm still this person who sees the world in an angry, upset way and taking offense and taking like all these moments of ways to twist things into me being a victim or whatever in that moment. So over the years, these little moments, when I would just kind of back up and allow these synchronicities to happen. Like when I moved to LA, it was the most insane level of like, was this the right choice? But I was walking down the street, I saw a friend from like high school, I saw a friend from an acting class, like these things, and so you're just living in this world of like watching these things happen. There has to be something. These probabilities are absolutely astronomically insane. Like this is not real. Like what? There has to be something more. Right?
Yeah, there's 8 million people here, and
I'm running into people that I know all the time. And you know, like this person knows this person, and I'm like, I was over there across this, you know. It's just so interesting. So it got me questioning, what is truth? What is real? Right? What is this world? Is there this higher being that is actually? I grew up Christian. That's part of my anger problems, right?
Well,
So, but then it was like
my mom's Cuban, as you know, so Catholic everything.
Oh yeah, the organized religion.
Yeah, Catholic everything.
So I was always just like, you know, that
Catholic.
that wasn't it for me. This level of like, hey, there is this something that didn't make sense, which was like this level of self-condemnation. I would put it some, you know, I know a lot of Christians, I love them, and they have sometimes their own relationship, but what was this world? And I just needed to define what that was, because when you define what the world is and what it means to you, then everything changes, right? And I started reading a lot of books, started, you know, diving into that reality of what is this world. And you know, I came to this conclusion that there is this loving force that brought us here for experience, right? For this experience, this earthly, worldly experience, whatever it is.
Source, exactly.
To give us this experience on life, and we get to choose however we label it in every moment, right? This is bad, this is good. We've chosen that. Even if it is like a really thing that, a breakup that's like, oh God, this is painful. I don't want to be experiencing that. In that moment, as we're judging the moment, that is the experience, right? The thing is happening, but our judgment makes it the creation, right? So I created this with this experience, and I put a judgment on it. Now this is my creation, right? Because that judgment is the one thing we do have control over, right? And in things, I used to be like, why is this happening? And then be like, okay, well, why is this happening? And how can I label this that it comes out for the highest good for all, right?
It's Shakespeare. I'm stealing from somebody, but thoughts make things, so think good ones.
Yes,
so think the good ones, right? And I always say this to people, like, if you love LA or you hate LA, either way, you're right. So, and, you know, and this is, and your life can change in this city in a bus ride.
In a bus ride, there
you go.
Wild.
You know, and so that's fascinating to me. I think really it's much more of a testament to you staying open and you being a vessel and a channel, and then being able to accept, like you were saying, rather than what there's so much of our existence where we get fooled into thinking we have to do this or it needs to look like this or whatever. And the reality is, it's part of the 4 agreements, right? Did you do your best? Okay, cool. Then leave it there. That's the water's edge, right? You know?
And see, as an LA native, I'm like, if you don't love LA, get out. There's
right.
too many people here. There aren't too many people here. Goodbye.
I love it. It's my favorite city in the whole world.
Now,
I love it.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I know you have a background in computer science. Okay. So you're in this voiceover world where you are Overwatch and Overwatch is you, and you have this background in computer science. Do you have the same doomsday attitude about AI as everything else I've read?
That's a great question.
So once again, no, I do not. I have this.
Okay, assuage us.
So I think in reality, it is. It's going to be the power of the user, right, and what your intent is, right. And I do think that there is malintent a lot of times, and there is good intent, right. You have this machine that has so much information and so many possibilities, and assist you in your journey to create, right, to create experience, and so it's going to come down to the people that use it and what they use it for and how they use it. Because, here's one thing I've been using it for. I've been reading A Course in Miracles for years, right? Which is a book about just your perceptions, and it's like a very well-known, like, it's dense, and you're like, I don't understand what's going on.
Okay.
It reads like, a scribe and like an old Bible passages.
Copy.
But it's just basically, what Jesus really meant when he said, what he said. And it comes down to you create through your perception. That is the basis. And you can create peace, right? You're looking for peace. Here's the way to peace, right? And I'm like, I'll read a passage, and I'm like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
I highly recommend, if you're reading that, to read as an addendum the Oxford annotated Bible. It's an annotated version of the Bible.
Yeah.
And so it'll go by certain passages and being like, this translation from Samaric means this.
Yeah,
and this
that's
from
great.
Aramaic goes to this. But it might help you with the passages that you're talking about.
And that's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to read all the great texts, right?
Yeah,
And so partially when I'll ask chat, I was like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Or like, they'll have, and then it tells you like the basis of like, hey, what this means is this from this previous passage that you might have missed. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Or what is it trying to say? And it's almost like this higher little being telling me, hey, this is what you're trying to read. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there is like whatever you're using it for, I don't have a doomsday attitude about things.
Okay.
Because, just in life, things will come and go in some regard.
Sure.
If
The
world-
dinosaurs, for example, they came and go.
Has it affected your job yet? Because I know for me, I've had jobs where AI has been used, and I'm like, working with the AI, and I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had auditions for AI and stuff like that. I think the biggest thing is how is it going to, when a car was invented, right? Like, it's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It could be a dangerous thing, but there has to be rules and regulations and things that are, helping it to not be that thing.
Now you presume this is funny. Can I read something to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so and then get your reaction. So it's been a little over a year, right? And a little over a year ago, more than 1,000 on March 29th, 2023, more than 1,000 tech leaders urged a pause on AI development, signing a letter about it presenting, quote, profound risks to society and humanity. That's a year ago. April 27th, which is a month after that, tech pioneer Geoffrey Hinton, aka the godfather of AI, resigns from Google, saying he regrets his life work.
Wow.
Okay, it's a month later.
Yeah.
Okay, now November 17th, which is about 6 months after that, a power struggle over safety temporarily deposes OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. If you remember that,
Yeah.
Everybody's like, why did they just get rid of this guy? Okay, and then they brought him
Brought him
back.
back,
They
yeah.
brought him back. Why? Because speed wins, right? Speed wins. February 12th. 2024, so this year. AI safety researcher Dr. Roman Yumkolsky. That's a doomsday sounding name.
Yeah, that really
right?
is.
Let's be honest.
Like he has a white, like Persian cat, and he is
exactly.
contemplating world domination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little long
All day.
fingernail, okay?
Yeah.
Dr. Roman Yampolsky says there's no proof AI can be controlled. 1 month later, he gives humanity a, quote, 99.99% probability of doom. Okay, that's okay. That's all right. There's nothing to worry about, right? Okay, so March 11th, so a report commissioned by the U.S. State Department warns AI could lead to human extinction. And then on May 17th, roughly a month ago, OpenAI dissolved its safety team. I think you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of these things where, much like a lot of things, there's just a lot of kind of hype, and it makes for a lot of, good like discussions and things like that. I do believe controlling the machines is the key. Mm-hmm. The problem is much the same thing that we've lived through. This is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to have you on in the beginning. It is that you have septuagenarians, you have 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds making legislation about technology that they do not use and do not understand.
Right.
That was the internet writ large. That was the smartphone writ large. This is something where if we're going to ask our leaders,
The stakes is high.
for these people, they don't even, most of them don't, they use flip phones.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
They can't even
who
spell
are we asking?
ChatGPT.
My
How they
point
gonna
is,
make legislation about it?
yeah. My point is, who are we asking to take care of this, right? Who's got the
Who's on first?
Yeah.
It is interesting because it is a reflection of what we are as humans, right?
And I just see the trickeration is what I...
The trickeration.
Yeah.
I like that word.
Trickeration.
The trickeration.
is-
That's a Maya
There's
ism,
hateration in this dancery, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's why. Okay, for example, I have run into this problem a couple of times, and I've met at least 20 singers that have as well. We've been approached by companies that will ask us to make something called sound packs, and that's not uncommon. They'll ask you for a suite of oohs and ahs that they could use for a sample, whatever. The problem is what these companies are doing is they're then using that and AIing that. So I actually am in the middle of I'm actually in the middle of a dispute right now because I didn't agree to do the pack, right? They took a sample pack that I did for something else and they AI'd my voice, and they're offering that as a sample pack that you can have for like R&B vocal sounds, okay? So
well, that's just not right?
But that's my issue is that because we're still at the helm of who controls this, these companies are picking these reach arounds that have not been legislated because the people who control the legislation have never even conceptualized of something like this.
You know, and I think there was some issues I had kind of like with SAG early on, making deals about things they didn't understand.
Sure.
Like early on with like the internet and how that was working. They had no idea, right? Yeah. And so now when AI
and that's
come around,
fair. Come back to the table. We didn't understand. We didn't understand. But we can't act like this situation we're walking into. We don't quite. You know. We understand that we kind of don't understand a lot of it.
We understand we don't understand, right? And you talk about that. Have you seen Suno? S-U-N-O?
Yes.
That thing that creates music?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you in there? That you in there?
No, exactly.
That's bonkers.
Yeah. And you're talking to two lifetime musicians right here. That's why we created Slap the Power.
How do you guys feel
I'm
about
like, am I going to have a job next year? Because I'm having to diversify my skill set.
Oh, my God.
She's a poli-sci major from Yale and got a fellowship from Oxford, and it's like, I got to diversify my...
Now I got to even more.
Now I got to do even more?
Okay, this brings me to the point you were talking about how you were using ChatGPT to help you disseminate certain parts of information. I feel like partially for everyone nowadays, that's necessary because the amount of information that we get is, more than 10 times what we used to get. And we aren't being taught in schools how to properly disseminate a piece of information and digest it and then make our own cogent results.
Right.
We don't know how to do that. We're not teaching children how to do that. We don't teach them the analytical skills that are necessary to do that.
Right.
I remember being in school and we had sentence diagramming, we had paragraph structure, you were taught how to make a proper thesis, what the proper points around supporting a proper thesis is. I see people who can't spell. So now how are we supposed it's very disconcerting. So I feel like we're almost going to have a Chat GPT like system in school in place to help people understand certain complex theories and texts because we've never taught them the skill set that they would need to be able to do that on their own.
That absolute
but
discernment.
It's almost like we did that by design because then you can allow any form of government to just take the minds over people. The stupider you make them, the less you make them question what your objective is, the more they're apt to go along with it.
Do you before we run out of time, do you find yourself with the video game companies that you work with and stuff like that? Is that something that is also that they're trying to work into their sort of mission statements, or is this something that's just kind of pay no attention to the guy behind the curtain? You don't have to put yourself on the spot in any way. I'm saying, do you see it just sort of like, do you kind of sense an understanding of a responsibility there, right? Because we're going to have you come back and we'll do something that's just going to be specifically on mental health in the video game industry, because that was really kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to get in there. But do you see on an AI issue, I know, with Anjali and stuff like that, it's like having to get your likeness. Right. And owning your likeness I feel like that's a frontier that we're on right now.
Right. And I think it comes down to, the deal being, transparent 100%. Right. And then, I kind of also feel that right now in the video game industry, there's not the proper type of compensation for what is being done. So the fact that it's taken to an even other degree, something needs to be, taking a look there. Like something has to be,
give.
something's got to like, hey, if you want to do this, make it so that it is, for the highest good for all, so everybody benefits, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
And there is some saying like, I think when you are a company, you're the voice they own, Lucio's voice, but definitely.
Do they? It's Johnny Cruz. Come on, man. But I
pretty
understand.
much
I understand.
is. Yeah.
The character Lucio's like Han Solo,
Yeah, right.
And we know Harrison Ford,
Right.
But I have, as a kid, Harrison Ford was Han Solo. Han Solo was Harrison Ford.
Right.
I see you at a convention. I'm like, I want a picture with Lucio, who's also, who's also Johnny. But
right. Well, and then it was interesting because I was in a movie many years ago that kind of had me take a step back from making movies for a little bit, and it was, this kind of apocalyptic kind of movie where.
Don't talk about Chippendales like that.
Yeah, apocalyptic dance moves. But
that's right.
It was like this movie that I had done, and it wasn't the greatest experience on the movie set. And I just remember, reading the script, I was like, it's fine. But at the end of the day, I didn't have control, of course, what the movie came out as. And at some point, they put Alex Jones in the movie. They put like a bunch of. It was propaganda for kind of like the director was like.
Next thing you see the playback, Kid Rock shooting a bunch of Bud Light cans.
Which I don't reserve judgments. Everybody's doing what they're doing, but
That's okay.
I was just
we
like,
do here.
That was one thing. I was like, I'm in this movie, and I don't necessarily align with this message, right, of what they were trying to do after the fact. And I was like, that was interesting, right? So I let that go. But in the regard, it's like I didn't have, of course, as an actor, we don't have control of how these things sometimes go. And it is one thing if Lucio's like now preaching, anarchy and destruction of something, and I'd be like, hey, that's my voice, but they went rogue and did some old.
Right.
It is interesting to think about that whole process of what could potentially happen.
Yeah.
And so, and somebody else getting the voice and making them say things. I mean, you just in some regard are having to separate that piece of me and Lucio and these characters and whatever happens to surrender them fully, right? There is going to be this thing where it's like, hey, here's this, and hopefully you do good with it.
Word.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, because I know we could talk to you forever. This is so interesting and fascinating. What projects do you want to talk about? What would you like to the people to know about on your end that means something to you right now?
Oh man!
If people want to make comments about your performance in Chippendales, for example,
you barely see that.
where?
Well, so I
what frame are you in?
Give me the exact frame. I can tell you.
We got some screenshots, and I'll show it to you when we're done.
There's a movie that's screening at the Dances with. Films festival I guess this will come out after, but Wednesday at 7 p.m. At the Chinese Theater. It's called Best Man Dead Man. Okay, a movie I'm in, which a comedy, a murder mystery.
Presumably it exists after the Chinese Theater.
So definitely check that out.
And it's called what again?
Best Man Dead Man.
Best Man Dead Man.
So we can get the link for that and maybe put it in our show
it'll be on my Instagram, and that's.
But we can put it on here too.
Okay, great.
And what's your Insta handle is what?
At Johnny Cruz, JonnyCruz, because I'm a sleepy boy.
Yeah.
But that was like my first on-camera thing for many years.
Wow.
Film.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be.
There's been so much mocap and voiceover.
Mocap and voiceover has kind of been my thing, but I'm like, let's get this face back on the big screen.
This face deserves screen
right. It's too
time.
gorgeous to let it sleep, baby.
Yeah,
it's too gorgeous to let it sleep. Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Appreciate you for
love.
coming on, and I can tell we're gonna have you back soon. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Anjali Bhimani.
And I'm Julia Bianco.
And we are so excited to be bringing you our new creative baby, the Character Select podcast.
I've wanted to save the world since I was 4.
There has been no character like him up to that point, and there really hasn't been a character since.
Every episode of Character Select, we're going to be taking fantastic video game performances and talking about what makes them tick, what makes them exciting as players, as performers, as sound designers, as casting directors.
I feel like I've been ambushed. I was here to be on a podcast to talk about a video game.
So it's a big old love fest here. That's how we start this, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. Recognized by the 2013 edition of the Guinness World Book of Records Gamers Edition as the most prolific female video game voice actor in the world.
You know it's a special project when you hold on to the people you created it with.
Careers are born by being in the right place at the right time, where you can't control the right time, but you can control the right place.
Okay, before we go, first of all, that was amazing with Johnny, isn't he?
He's so
adorable.
charismatic. Like, he could run for president, and I would totally buy it. Like,
I'd vote for Johnny Cruz.
But you know what I loved about him is his earnestness about really looking at the way he's decided to look at life. Like, just looking at, oh, there's a cause and an effect, and if I meditate, but also look at the right factors, I can influence my choices, and that can influence my outcome. I think that that's a really beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah. You're shaping you're manifesting your own life by just being that.
Mm-hmm. But I love that he also said by also being present.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been cool is it finally hit me. If I'm on my phone, I'm not present. I am on that phone. And
you're present to that.
I'm present to that, right? But you're not present in the moment. And I've started to get so much like joy out of claiming that present time back, and I do think that's going to be part of the skill that we're going to have to keep sharpening as we get it deeper and deeper into this kind of AI world. Before we go, Slap Studios is proud to announce that not only have we moved to this new studio,
dun, 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 dun.
got the new.
We even have new plants.
That's right. Make sure to check it out at slapstudiosla.com. But we also have our first co-production with our new partners, and we are super over the moon to announce we signed the one and only Norman Chad, World Series of Poker legend. We've got his show Gambling Mad with Norman Chad. Make sure to check it out. He's a legend. He's gonna have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's also one of those guys where the first time he came in, he made fun of everybody in the room, including Charlie.
That's hilarious.
When you make fun of the dog and everybody in the room, I'm like, props. You're good. You're one of us. And his show is all about that too. So make sure to check that out. And what else we got? I know we got some other stuff.
Well, the That's It, That's All is in its new season.
Yeah.
And Casey has some really wonderful guests coming up. I was talking with her earlier about some of the subject matter that she's tackling. And it's definitely going to be an in-depth dive that I think is an extension of where she started from season 1. So.
Yeah. And you did another episode, right?
We did.
Yeah. So make sure to look out for that one as well. And we want to leave you on a high note this week. There's a lot of news that we've kind of gone over, and we ran through it with Johnny and stuff. But we want to do favorite new things, because I think there's a lot of stuff that's going on that is worth being happy about and lifting up, back to
and
Johnny's
hopeful.
point, and hopeful. So Maya, if you had to say, what's your favorite new thing now?
Well, okay. I don't know that we might agree on our same favorite thing, but one of my favorite things that just gave me hope in the world was that Mexico elected a woman.
Hey, that's right. And a climatologist.
Yes.
Doctor.
And like a smart woman. Like not just like a puppet woman.
Yeah.
Like an actual woman.
Yeah,
See,
yeah,
we
yeah.
can do actual things. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I love how people say, well, why can't we do that here? And it's like, okay, well, we have an electoral college problem where it's, really, can the crusty white guy beat the red states electoral college, right? That's the game. But more has been done for climate under the Biden administration because of the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
Than any time in history up to this point. And so, provided we hold on to democracy, I'm looking forward to some of the climate things that can be teamed up now, because they're our neighbor to the south, and it really we have documentary that we're working on that we can't say anything about right now, but it's inside of Slap Music Media. It's a giant documentary that has to do with how the oceans tie everything together in climate, and we really need our neighbors to be going the same way that we are.
But that the progress is there,
It's
and
there.
that
It's hopeful.
the solutions are being manifested. So that in and of itself is its own hope.
Yeah. And I would guess say my favorite new thing of recently has been that the realization that I have the power to be more present, and I have the power to fix some of the things that are, that are unhappy or that make me kind of unhappy in my surroundings. And I feel like, we design the world that we said it during Johnny's thing, but thoughts, make things. So think good ones. And I feel like getting control of that is my new favorite thing.
Is the thing.
Yeah.
There's this song by this amazing artist named Amos Lee that I love.
Love Amos Lee.
Okay, so he has a song, then he says, and the world ain't no harder than it's ever been.
Hey.
And I think that, even in the face of the world looking very, very difficult and almost impossible to navigate, at the end of the day, the world really isn't harder than it's ever been at any point in time.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to leave it. I love that, Maya, and I love you, and thank you for this. And make sure to leave comments on what your new favorite thing is.
You got a favorite thing.
You got a favorite thing, and if there's something you want us to dive into and chew on here, that's what we're about, slapping that power. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
We love you. Slap the Power is written and produced by Rick Barrio Dill and Maya Sykes. Associate producer, Bri Coorey. Audio and visual engineering and studio facilities provided by Slap Studios LA, with distribution through our collective home for social progress in art, Slap the Network. If you have any ideas for a show you want to hear or see, or if you would like to be a guest artist on our show, please email us at info@slapthepower.com.
Ever wonder what a high-stakes private home game looks like? This is it. Real poker, real money, real people. It's the Boardroom in Beverly Hills. They win, they lose, they even go broke, and they come back. Join Amir and Jacob as they welcome a cast of dignitaries and degens to the Boardroom.
Amir's my best friend. We battle to the death.
With all due respect, our game is much different than your game.
This ain't a pansy-ass Hollywood home game. These are the rough and tumble streets of Beverly Hills.
Can you rank the players here?
I don't think it's a good idea.
They play big, they play hard. Watch as they make their way to the World Series of Poker. Each will try to turn $10K into $500,000 at the Big O event June 13th.
In my opinion, some of the guys that play here, they should make the final table.
For many, that $10K might go down the drain in just one hand. Follow it all on socials at Gambling Mad Show or Gambling Mad Norman Chad on YouTube.